into a brand new hour of CBS Sports HQ. It's not Christmas yet, but boy, do we have some gifts for you today. A jam-packed sports weekend. It really should be its own holiday today. Look at this Saturday spread. Santa Claus gave us the NFL, college football, college basketball, all coming your way this afternoon. And, of course, we'll have you covered all afternoon right here on CBS Sports HQ. Of course, for a big day like this, we had to bring out a big-time panel, and that's what we get kicking off the show today. Haley Sutton, happy to be joined by Jordan Giorgio, Damian Harris, Danny Cannell, Lijay Douzable. Look at the star power, fellas and ladies. Guys, how we feeling today? Big day.
Overwhelmed, but in the best way. I'm ready for it. And we have to put up with these three and so many more.
We're not that hard to do.
No.
We just get up here and tell the truth unless your name is Daniel Cannell.
Yeah.
If you just start spewing all kind of stuff, nobody knows what he's talking about half the time.
Apparently, I'm the only one that celebrates Christmas around here. I got a little bit of red. I got some red shoes on here, too. You know, like, those are some kind of red bottoms. They're not the ones you
Lijay's got some feet heat on as well.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
I don't know if he can get up like that.
Wait, y'all didn't even
we're going all in.
My feet heat. Hold on.
We saved the best for last.
We just going some old school Georgetown 11.
Can we see it?
Georgetown 11. Just so y'all know, that's my wife's favorite shoe, by the way. She's a DMV native. She's from the D.C. area. She loves them. Georgetown 11. So, babe, shout out to you.
And the sweater, too.
And, yeah, Jordan put it out. She bought me the sweater, too. So
hey, there you go.
Christmas came early for all of us. We have so much to get to, and I'm going to be a little biased here, but I do believe it is college football's day, and that is where we begin. The wait is over as the college football playoff got underway last night in South Bend, and the first round continues today. Tonight in Columbus, Ohio State hosts Tennessee. Two of the most iconic programs in college football history will clash for just the second time ever. Damian, what are you watching for in this one?
This is my most anticipated matchup of the first round. You got the SEC traveling to Big Ten country, and there's a lot of questions that are going to be answered in this game. There's a lot to look for. How is Ohio State going to respond after the loss in the game? We saw what happened during the game. We saw what happened after the game. Tensions are going to be at an all-time high. How is Tennessee going to handle the cold? Which team is going to develop the run game? Which game is going to dominate in the trenches? There's going to be a lot of things to watch for that are going to impact this matchup, and I'm pretty sure at the end of this game we'll have a jump on Ryan Day's job security status.
Ooh, so many questions were waiting to be answered. Meanwhile, Danny, let's head somewhere warmer for us Florida folks. Texas, where the Longhorns look to rebound from their loss to the SEC championship game to Georgia when they welcome Clemson to town. It's Quinn Ewers versus Cade Klubnik. What are you expecting in this one?
A little rematch of a Texas high school state championship where Cade Klubnik got the best of Quinn Ewers. This is a Clemson team that thought their season was over when they lost to South Carolina. Then Miami lost to Syracuse. They get in the ACC title. They win it to get the automatic bid, so they're kind of playing with house money. Meanwhile, that guy right there, Quinn Ewers, I'd like to see him step up on a big stage this afternoon, see him perform the way he's capable of. Maybe a couple weeks off leading into this game is exactly what he needed. The Clemson defense is going to have their hands full. I can't wait to see all this orange on the field together going toe.
Texas, double-digit favorites entering that one that is set to kick off at 4 Eastern. Elsewhere in Happy Valley, number 6 seed Penn State hosts ACC runner-up and the 11th seed SMU Mustangs in the first playoff appearance for both programs. Jay, what catches your eye in this one?
I mean, I don't know if you guys walked out of your houses today down here in South Florida. It was
chilly.
It was chilly.
7 degrees.
I felt great this morning.
Well, I want to talk about the temperature in this game because SMU, right, their average temperature for each game is 72 degrees. Ooh. Do you know what it's going to be in Happy Valley today?
30.
25 degrees. Real feel 14 degrees. How will SMU be able to handle the elements? We saw in the ACC championship game, I believe that was their coldest game to point at 44 degrees. I think that affected them, and that's why they started slow in that game. And then the physical run game with Nick Singletary and Katron Allen. Will SMU be able to stand up to it? They've done a really good job against the run. This is a different type of outfit with that offensive line in Penn State.
Fellow Texas girl here, we do not like the cold. That is confirmed. But check this out. We've also got NFL action today, guys. The playoff picture becoming clearer and clearer starting today. today. Two monster matchups. We begin at Arrowhead, where the question, Danny, has been all about Patrick Mahomes' health. What are you watching in this one?
All on that ankle. A lot of people debating should he play or not play and try to maintain that #1 seed with a 13-1 record, which might be the ugliest 13-1 team in the history of the NFL. But who cares? A win is a win is a win. And the Texans already clinched their division. They're hoping to knock off this team. We're going to talk a little bit about C.J. Stroud, possibly why he hasn't been having the year in his second year as he had his spectacular rookie season last year. But I can't wait to see this matchup. A couple teams, tops in the AFC. Cannot wait to watch it.
Yeah, and then it's the gauntlet after that. The AFC North potentially on the line when the Steelers and the Ravens meet at 4 o'clock. The last meeting, there were no touchdowns for Pittsburgh, and they still won the game. We bring in our betting analyst, Eric Casillas, to discuss. EK, how are we making money, and what are you watching in this one?
Well, first of all, I'm watching the shoe game in there, and I realize it's very strong. No one told us, but we are still ready in here. So if you want to come here, we are always prepared. We got the alligator sneakers on. We got the Jordans. We got everything. And we have a good wager for this particular game. First off, when I look at this game, anybody who's back in the Steelers is trying to give me the trend is your friend. I don't really care what happened 3 years ago. I don't care what happened 4 years ago. There was no Derrick Henry, a different quarterback in Pittsburgh. I'm looking at the here and now. And when I look at Pittsburgh in their last 4 games, 2 losses, a game they gave up 38, and they beat Cleveland. And I look then at Baltimore. Since this game against Pittsburgh, they are averaging over 30, and they're averaging giving up less than 20. Baltimore is playing better. They're at home. They need it. Give me the Ravens. I'll give you the 7.
All right, there it is. The AFC playoff picture becoming clearer and clearer. We'll have some answers today. Oh, by the way, everyone take a breath, because we've got college basketball on deck as well, too. Our college basketball analyst, Matt McCall, in the studio with us today. And, Matt, we know the CBS Sports Classic gets underway later this afternoon. You've got your eye on UCLA UNC this afternoon.
Come on, it's hoop season. It's
hoop
time
season,
to focus
baby.
on hoops. We got all this football going on. We got the NFL. We got college football play, but we got hoops. We got our Carolina blue sneakers on with our Santa socks. We're ready to go here. I don't want to say it's a must-win for North Carolina, but they're sitting here at 6-5. Hubert Davis, this may be a must-win. How about UCLA, one of the most surprising teams in the country? Mick Cronin has one of the best defenses in the entire country. Going to have to slow this North Carolina offense down, but this is a big one for the Tar Heels in late December.
Yeah, certainly not been the season that UNC we've expected out of them, but we do know they will be on CBS today, the first of a doubleheader in the CBS Sports Classic at MSG. It all starts at 3 o'clock. We also have another game as well, Memphis and Mississippi State. More on that later, Jordan.
We've got so much for everyone today, but as we get back to the day ahead in college football, the first round of the college football playoff kicked off last night from South Bend, Indiana, where the Indiana Hoosiers storybook season came to an end to Notre Dame that was just dominant and clicking on all cylinders. So the Irish cruise to a New Year's Day matchup against Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, as we now have our first bit of movement in the college football playoff bracket. As we get you back on set here inside our CBS Sports HQ studios, Danny, I want to start with you. Notre Dame just dominant in all aspects of the game, but it started and ended with their defense.
It really did. I mean, they had the interception early off Curtis Rourke. They dominated from start to finish. I thought that was going to be the biggest challenge, and I thought you saw a quarterback, not a whole entire team. I thought you saw a quarterback who was overwhelmed by the atmosphere. Then he had the early red zone interception, and I felt like that really hurt his confidence. I would like to show you guys a text that I sent to Cover 3, because in the warm-ups, I said, does Curtis Rourke look scared to you? And sometimes you can tell by somebody's eyes where they, and I thought the magnitude of the environment definitely impacted his play, as well as a pretty ferocious Notre Dame front that really had them playing. Third and long situations aren't great for anybody, but they totally stymied that Indiana offense.
So that's interesting that you bring that up. Yesterday, when we were on HQ, we talked about how Indiana's schedule maybe left them a bit unprepared for an environment like this. Is that what you think went wrong, Lijay?
I don't know if that was it. I just think that was a terrible pass by Curtis Rourke. This is a guy that's played a lot of football going back to his days at the University of Ohio, where he was MAC Offensive Player of the Year. I just think there's an ebbs and flows of the game. You know this, Damian and DK. And when he turned that ball over in the red zone, it literally shifted everything over to Notre Dame. And I feel like they just never were able to recoup after that. And then after that, you know how it is, DK. When you're a quarterback and you throw a red zone interception, you begin to be a little skittish throwing the football, right? So many times, those back shoulder plays where they hit those earlier in the season, they just weren't on the same page. The quarterback back and receiver. So I don't know if they were skittish going into the game, but after he threw that interception, I will say, it seemed like there was a change in Curtis Rourke. He wasn't as aggressive. He's one of the most efficient quarterbacks in all of college football this year. We didn't see that Curtis Rourke on the field yesterday.
And what I want to point out, piggybacking off what both of you guys said, was after Curtis Rourke threw that first interception, and then Jeremiah Love took it 98 yards to the house, like I literally watched Curtis Rourke sit down on the bench, get back up right after that touchdown, put his helmet on, and he already looked defeated.
Yeah.
So whenever you turn the ball over in favorable position, you're in the opponent territory, you basically already have 3 points.
Correct.
You're in field goal range, and then you turn it over, and then the other team scores on one play. That completely deflates your confidence as a team, but especially as a quarterback. And then when Curtis Rourke doesn't play at the level that we've seen him play at all year, then that affects the rest of the offense, that affects the rest of the team, and that's why they were just outmatched last night.
Let's talk about, though, the biggest play of the game. And, of course, Damian, you know I'm coming to you here. Jeremiah Love breaks off for the longest, the biggest play we have seen in college football history. At that point of the game, how big of a moment was that for Jeremiah Love and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish?
Well, it was huge because Notre Dame had just come off turning the ball over as well.
Yeah.
So you turn the ball over, and then, you know, your defense goes out and they support you. They get the ball back, and then it's like, okay, we're starting at our own 2. All we got to do is worry about getting the first down. Then we can start to open up the call sheet a little bit more, start to call some of our normal plays. Then you want to get a couple first downs. You know, maybe if you don't go down and score, you want to flip the field position for your defense or whatever. But just to score on 98 yards on one play, like that builds a level of confidence. That builds a level of, okay, we just came off of a turnover, but this is how you right that wrong on the next possession. You hand the ball off, let your back take it 98 yards, and then you show that you've established the run game early.
Yep.
You've shown that you can lean on that. So just in case your quarterback, if Riley Leonard didn't play phenomenal, then you can depend on the running game. But it just opened up so many things. Then if you're Indiana, who focuses so hard on stopping the run, then you put all your eggs in one basket after letting the guy go 98 yards on the second drive of the game. Then that opens up opportunity for Riley Leonard to, you know, open up in the deeper part of the game, passing the ball down the field.
I got to get something off my chest.
Oh, get it off. Can we get an ISO? Can we please get an ISO?
No,
we have
please.
only had one game of the college football playoff, and we already have people out here complaining about strength of schedule. And see, I told you Indiana was going to be overwhelmed. Just shut it, including one SEC head coach in Lane Kiffin, who's out there saying, oh, congrats to the committee for finding an entertaining matchup. We're not supposed to find entertaining matchups. We're not supposed to chase those. We are supposed to combine people who deserve it and teams that have earned their way into the playoff. If we want to go off entertainment or point spreads or who we think are going to be tight games, then why play the regular season at all? Let's let this thing play out. We have 3 games today, and we'll reassess after it's all done. But coming out of one game and complaining about strength of schedule is ridiculous.
It is.
Texas's strength of schedule wasn't great. Notre Dame's strength of schedule wasn't great. And in Georgia's national championship runs, their strength of schedule was in the 100s, and no one complained about it. So stop complaining after one playoff game. Blowouts happen. It's a part of sports. It sucks for the viewers, ourselves included. Do I wish it was a tight overtime game? Of course, but you can't try to schedule those. Go with it. Let's see how it happens. It's just an unfortunate reality of sports.
Okay, so to piggyback off that, because we totally hear you, and I agree with you with most of those points, but how much criticism is warranted for Curt Cignetti after that game? Some decisions were made. It is not to discredit what Indiana was able to do and what he was able to do with Indiana this year. They had a phenomenal season. We have to give credit to where credit is due, but how much criticism is warranted for Curt Cignetti?
So the 4th and 10 decision in the fourth quarter, I probably would have gone for it, but I do think he was well aware that his quarterback in those long yard situations.
He said that our offense just wasn't working.
Right, and so I like early in the game, and even at halftime, he's like, we got to start throwing it more. I'm like, yeah, but when you do, your quarterback, his confidence is shot. So it's just one of those nights where they were trying things they couldn't, they just couldn't get anything going offensively. It happens. I will say this, Indiana's defense did more than hold their own. If you take away the 98-yard run from Jeremiah Love, they held him under 100-yard rushings. Riley Leonard did throw for 200 yards, but it wasn't like he was shredding them. So, like, I thought it was just a game that the offense, and it looked very similar to Ohio State, the game where they just couldn't do anything offensively. Sometimes it just happens. You're on the road. It's a tough environment. It's just an off night.
And the thing is, when you're a head coach, right, and you talk as much trash as Curt Cignetti, which I love as a player.
We all do.
Then this is what happens when you lose games. People are going to put up interpretations of how you kind of failed in that game. And to DK's point, right, it was just the ebbs and flow. We talked about it earlier in the game. If Curtis Work doesn't throw that interception, they potentially go up 3-0 or 7-0. Maybe the tide switches in their favor. I like how you talked about it kind of reminds you of that Ohio State game because it necessarily wasn't the offensive defense that lost Indiana that game. It was the special teams that lost them in this game. This game, it was the offense that lost them in this game. They just could not get in the rhythm on offense. They weren't able to run the ball effectively. And their offensive line got whooped by Notre Dame's defensive line. Oh, my goodness.
I really hope we get some good games today.
I'm going to tell you guys, if we don't, then I'm going to sit here and I'm going to be like, hey, let me say something. Let me get my close up. And I'm going to pound this table. I'm going to pound this table about teams who shouldn't have been in the playoffs. We expanded it to 12 teams. Maybe we shouldn't have because there are going to be teams that have not been in this moment yet that once they get there, they piss down their leg and they show that they cannot handle it. Indiana did that last night. I'm not saying that's going to happen all across the college football playoff, but there is opportunity for that. Indiana was the first team to show that some teams that haven't been in situations like this, whether it's scheduling during the season or not having experience in the college football playoff, the moment is bigger than the moments that you've had throughout the season. So if we have more games like we had last night, be ready for
The good news is, Damian, like good news, bad news is we're going to talk about the SEC here now because Notre Dame's playing Georgia in the next round. I know it's not the SEC team you want to talk about, but obviously the interesting thing about this matchup is going to be the quarterback matchup, right? We know what we need to know about Riley Leonard and what he brings to the table, but this Gunnar Stockton kid, maybe people who haven't been paying attention, we don't know much about him. So, Danny, I'll come to you first here. What do we need to know about this QB matchup?
I am kind of blown away that the odds makers haven't budged and still have Georgia as the third best odds for the national championship. I don't know if it's because Stetson Bennett was a former walk-on who stepped on and won back-to-back national championships, but that is not the same caliber of defense. Yes, they're very good. It's not the same caliber of wide receivers on the outside that Stetson Bennett had. Yes, they're pretty good. I still want to see what Gunnar Stockton brings to the table because I know he was pretty good in the SEC championship game, but he did throw a pretty bad interception on 3rd and 13, and he didn't protect himself and almost got decapitated while he's out there running around. And there's a whole, I've talked about this a little bit on here this week, there's a whole different animal in coming off the bench when you don't have time to think, you're just thrown into action, you don't have time to get nervous. When you have time to prepare, and more importantly, the defense has time to prepare blitzes for you and make sure they can try to contain what you do well, and you have to think about that pressure-packed situation you're being in as the quarterback of Georgia, that can impact you. Like we saw Curtis Work. He had time to think about that road playoff game. Looked like it impacted him. I don't know how it's going to work. Maybe he thrives, but there's the more likelihood of somebody playing in the first big game on that stage that he could struggle.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought up the Georgia defense because it has not been the same. It hasn't played to the standard. They gave up way too many explosive plays. And going back to Gunnar Stockton, you're right. When a guy comes in and you don't have game tape, and you know this, Damian, you don't have game tape on a guy, he can have success because you don't know how to play them. Well, now Notre Dame has some game tape, and we saw what they did to Indiana's offensive line yesterday, right, with exotic looks and that defensive line being able to hunt after the quarterback. So it'll be really interesting to see how Gunnar Stockton prepares for this game and how he handles, because there is going to be some adversity, how he handles it. He did a really good job in the SEC championship game. This Notre Dame defense will get after you.
I just can't wait to see what that one looks like. I know we have a lot more to get to, but certainly an intriguing matchup. We got to take our first break here because boy, oh boy, we promised you a jam-packed day, and now we get to the second layer. We go to the NFL. 2 pivotal games in the AFC. It gets started with the Chiefs and Texans. We'll talk about that. And then we've also got more NFL after that. Because the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, he has struggled mightily against the Steelers. What he can do differently to try to get Baltimore in the win column and one step closer to clinching the division. And some interesting news this morning regarding Falcons quarterback Kirk Cousins. Is this the end of his time in Atlanta? We'll discuss after this. to CBS Sports HQ, presented by FanDuel. Some big news this morning that we are following out of the NFL. The Falcons are expected to cut Kirk Cousins before his $10 million roster bonus is due on March 17th, rather. That's according to multiple reports. Our Jonathan Jones notes that while there is a league-wide expectation that the Falcons would cut Cousins, the team has options to keep him. The news comes only 3 days after Atlanta benched Cousins for first-round pick Michael Penix Jr. Guys, obviously this is not something that we had on our bingo card today and all of the things that we were set to talk about. But Danny, we obviously have to. I mean, when you think about Kirk Cousins, it was kind of a dream start, and then it turned into a nightmare, and now that nightmare is getting worse with Michael Penix. I mean, what do you make of this?
You know how nightmare starts when you, like, all of a sudden your eyes might twitch and stuff, and, like, you start to see things happening? I think that was draft night when they took Michael Penix Jr. I think everybody, including myself, was like, wait a second. They just paid Kirk Cousins all this money. You're all in now, and yet you drafted somebody for the future. And at the time, I don't think any one of us were like, wait a second. They're going to have to break the glass on this project this early in the season. But I think that was the start of the nightmare season, Haley, and it started off a little bit bumpy, 1-2, then he gets back on track. But ultimately, in the last 5 games, when you lose 4 or 5 and you have 9 interceptions in those games, it's just a bottom line business. It doesn't matter what your salary is, what your status is, how long you've been in the NFL. If you don't produce, teams have to make a change. I think even Kirk Cousins realizes that his play was so poor they had to do something, but I still think there is tension because of him being blindsided by Michael Penix Jr. taken in that first round, when they could have had somebody like Aroma Dunze to help that receiving core, another defensive edge rusher that could have helped that defense. I think that's what we talked about on draft night. Anybody but another quarterback, and here we are. The nightmare is about to wake up for Kirk Cousins.
It's a 4-year, $100 million deal. He's thrown a league-leading 16 interceptions. Obviously going to be an issue there, but still more news to discuss.
Most definitely. The Falcons do kick off at 1 o'clock tomorrow against the Giants, but today at 1 o'clock, the Kansas City Chiefs will host the Houston Texans at Arrowhead Stadium. There is a look at Patrick Mahomes. Good news for the Chiefs. He is expected to start today. He was a full participant at practice on Tuesday and Wednesday, as well as Thursday, which was the Chiefs' final session of the week, Damian. But so what is your concern level for Patrick Mahomes, that high ankle sprain, not only for today's game, but to the weeks to follow?
Well, for anybody else, my level of concern would be high, because obviously you have to worry about, with a quarterback, his mobility. Can he plant his feet? Can he set his feet? Can he make accurate throws? Can he make, cognizant decisions with that injury? But this is Patrick Mahomes we're talking about. This is a guy who dealt with a high ankle sprain in 2022, and what did they end up doing? They cruised their way to a Super Bowl championship, and he actually capped off that Super Bowl win against Philly with a game-sealing, I think it was like a 20 or a 30-yard rush on 3rd down to seal the victory, get them in field goal range, and ultimately win them a Super Bowl. So I'm not super concerned about Patrick Mahomes. We've seen him play through injuries. We've seen him still be able to play at a high level, be able to make correct decisions, get the ball where it needs to be at the right time. But I will say he is going up against a very, very good defense in the Houston Texans, excuse me. They're facing off against one of the top edge rushing duos in Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson, combined for over 22.5 sacks. So that mobility is going to be tested, and his decision making is going to be tested, because the Houston Texans, they have 99 takeaways, or excuse me, they have 45 takeaways this season. They've created 99 negative plays. So his mobility, his decision making, his accuracy, everything is going to be on display against a really good Houston Texans defense.
We always talk about him being built differently. He truly is the definition of that. Let's go to the AFC North, guys, because, oh my gosh, this game between the Ravens and the Steelers is going to be exciting. I just want to read a couple of things here so that we're all on the same page. So a win today clinches the AFC North title for Pittsburgh. That would be Mike Tomlin's 8th division title there. Baltimore clinches a playoff berth with a win or a tie today. Indiana has to lose or tie, and Miami has to lose or tie. All that being said, Lige, I'll come to you here. Lamar Jackson does not play well against the Steelers. The numbers are there, but he's not. He's 1-4 in his career. This is the one game I think that's kind of been a bugaboo for him this year. So how does he change the narrative, and what's your expectations for this game?
Yeah, he definitely struggled earlier in the year up there at Pittsburgh, but these are the scenarios that Lamar Jackson usually shows he's the best in the league, right? This is a scenario that kind of reminded me last year on Christmas Day when he traveled to the West Coast to the San Francisco 49ers and literally put the team on his back. A scenario that you didn't bring up, Haley, is that the Ravens are still in play to win this division. Right? Let's not forget, if they win this game, they're tied with the Steelers. The Steelers still have the Cincinnati Bengals, who are fighting for their playoff lives, and the Kansas City Chiefs to play, so they could lose out. The Baltimore Ravens could win this division, and you said it, the Colts lose and they win, then they're in the playoffs. And for the Baltimore Ravens, the pedigree that they have, all they have to do is get in. It'll be really interesting, though, to see the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? No George Pickens again this week.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson and this offense has really struggled. They only had 2 offensive possessions in that second half versus the Eagles last week because their defense couldn't get off the field. So Lamar Jackson is coming off a 5-touchdown performance. He only had 4 incompletions, and people are saying this MVP race is over. Let's not forget, he has 2 standalone games, today versus Steelers and then next week versus Texans on Christmas with everybody watching. I'm looking forward to seeing this one today.
I'm just looking forward to a Steelers touchdown. They didn't get one the last time these two played and still won the game, so not sure if we'll see that again. But we do know there's some good bets in this game, and to do so, we bring in Mackenzie Brooks and Eric Casillas. What's up, guys?
All right, thank you very much. Mackenzie, let's talk about that game first that they just broke down. Steelers walking into Charm City to see the Ravens. This is a we don't like you, you don't like us. I was once talking to Hines Ward, and he said, we got off the bus, and there was grandfather, father, and 6-year-old kid, all with the one-fingered peace sign extended at our bus in a line. He's like, that is what it's like when you go into Baltimore.
Sounds like Philly.
Yeah, it's right. It's exactly right. So what is Baltimore going to be like today, and who's going to win this game? 6.5s and 7s out there in this spot.
I'll take the 6.5. I'll take the 7. I love the Ravens here. Look, the Steelers have obviously won 8 of the last 9 matchups. They won the matchup previously this season. If any of that mattered, we would not see a 7-point spread. We would not see a touchdown spread. That's odds makers. That's a public understanding. This is an objectively better team and an improved team since what we saw against the Steelers. Lamar had a 48% completion percentage against the Steelers. Do I think it has to be his average of 70 today? No. But do I think it'll be better than 48? Absolutely. This past D is better. Even the past 4 games, putting Kyle Hamilton back to that traditional safety spot has proven to be a tremendous improvement for this team. So again, just reading the line, reading odds makers, if they cared about the history, this would not be a 7-point spread.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've already said I like Baltimore in this spot. If you like Pittsburgh today, you're going to be giving me the trend as your friend. I don't care what happened 5 years ago. I don't care what happened 4 years ago. Different quarterback for Pittsburgh. No Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
All right. This is a late in the year. Everybody needs it. I think that the Baltimore Ravens are going to win the division. Mark it down right now. And I think they're going to win today. And I don't like the fact that Pittsburgh doesn't have Pickens. And I don't like how Pittsburgh has played since the Baltimore game. They played 4 games since then. 2 losses, gave up 38, and their 1 win was against Cleveland, who, let's be honest, has a postage stamp and has already mailed the season in. So I like Baltimore to win today. Next up, the other game is the Texans and the Chiefs. We know that Patrick Mahomes is not 100%. I don't know what percent it is. But what do we like today with the Chiefs at home? 3.5. They are favored. This total is keeping it's going lower, limbo lower, and we're all the way down to 41.5 right now.
I'm going to give you a touchdown prop that I just think has some massive value here. Xavier Worthy anytime touchdown set at plus 260 around. The Sportsline model would make this around minus 110. I understand we have Hollywood Brown back. However, I think those snaps go into a Justin Watson, a Juju situation. I don't think that really goes into what Worthy is getting volume-wise. And we have the threat of a rushing touchdown. We have the threat of a receiving touchdown. When I think of Hollywood Brown being back here, all he is distracting defenders here and giving us more opportunity maybe for a jet sweep for Worthy here. So I think plus 260 is massive value for this guy.
I always go back to when someone tells you who they are, believe them. Right? Over and over and over. And the Chiefs have told us who they are. They win and they don't cover. That's who they are. They win games and they don't cover spreads. And now that it's north of 3 and I'm getting 3.5, and Patrick Mahomes, I don't know how healthy he is. How do I not take Houston here? And with a total of 41.5, 3.5 is a high percentage of the total. Right? 3.5 in a game that's 54 feels different than 3.5 when the total's 41.5. Like, this is going to be a field goal either way game, and you have to beat me by more than a field goal. I will take Houston. I will take the points. I don't have to win, and that's what Kansas City can do, what they do, and show us who they are, and that will be the case. All right. Give me a little parlay action today. Give me more than 1 leg, 2 legs, 3 legs, 4 legs, 5 legs. Where do you want to go?
Let's go college football. We have a nice 3-leg parlay for the college football slate that we have here. We're going to start with Clemson. Team total under 21.5. We bought that up to 21.5. It's around 17.5 on FanDuel right now. I do not understand how you can crack 20 points even, 22 points let alone, against an SEC defense when you played 2 SEC teams earlier this year and combined for 17 points. This Texas defense will be a problem for them. Then we go to Penn State minus the 8.5. We saw what happened with the little guys last night in the Friday night game. I just think this might be a big stage for Kevin Jennings, who seems to have some fumbling issues as of late. Now he's getting lucky. His own team is recovering the fumbles. I don't think that will be the situation in Happy Valley. Then we go Ohio State, third quarter. Back to the well we go. I know people say this is the best roster money can buy. I don't know if I believe all that, but it definitely is in the third quarter. Whatever happens in that locker room, they come out with their heads on fire. Best defensive team in the third quarter, best offensive team in the third quarter as well. I like Tennessee in the game, but something about that third quarter in the Buckeyes, you just got to ride that trend out. And as we come to the end of the season, we got to go full circle here.
You know I love and I'm giddy about that Clemson team total under. We're having fun here. Let's send it back to Jordan.
Oh, playing it safe early on.
She called them the little guys last night.
I mean, she's coming for the throw this early on in the morning. The college football playoffs, you guys are here, and you can bet all the big matchups with FanDuel. Plus, right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Just scan the QR code to start making some bets on America's #1 sports book. More to come on CBS Sports HQ when we return. Man, oh man, it's a big day if you're a Buckeye fan. You'll be locked in all day. It first begins when Ohio State basketball takes on Kentucky. But don't forget to follow former Ohio State Buckeye C.J. Stroud when the Texans kick off at 1 p.m. against the Chiefs. We'll get into all that and more next. here on CBS Sports HQ. We've been busy all morning long covering all the games going on today, but not as busy as Ohio State fans will be today. Buckeyes fans have quite the schedule ahead of them to lock into. It begins with watching their former quarterback and current Texans quarterback C.J. Stroud at 1 p.m. take on the Kansas City Chiefs, followed by Buckeyes basketball at 5:30 in the CBS Sports Classic from Madison Square Garden. They take on Kentucky. And finally, how is this for a nightcap? Ohio State and Tennessee from Columbus to put a bow on the first round of the college football playoff. Let's begin, though, with the first game of the day in the NFL when the 9-5 Texans take on the Kansas City Chiefs. Leger, is this a Texans team that's kind of flying under the radar right now?
I wouldn't say they're flying under the radar. They had a lot of expectations. I know me and DK talked about this in the preseason, and they haven't met those expectations on the offensive side. Now, the defense has played really well and up to the standard. Obviously, D'Amico Ryan's a defensive-minded coach. But when you look at C.J. Stroud, he's almost had like a sophomore slump. And due part because the offensive line hasn't protected that well, right? He hasn't been confident in the pocket. Juice Scruggs has been hurt. They moved Titus Howard from right tackle to guard. They put in rookie Blake Fisher, and he really struggled last week versus Chop Robinson and those pass rushers on the outside. So C.J. Stroud and this offensive line, they have to get on the same page. They got to be able to protect him to allow him to go through his progressions, and they got to figure out a way to get Nico Collins going back the way he was in the beginning of the season. I know me and DK kind of kidded. It looked like Nico Collins was on his way to 2,000 receiving yards, and then he has a hamstring injury. But ever since he's come back from the hamstring injury, the connection just has not been there between him and C.J. Stroud. And then Joe Mixon with the ankle injury, right? He's been the focal point of their offense. They could not get him going on the run game. What helps a quarterback? The run game. They got to get Joe Mixon going today.
So do all of these things, are these like reasons why CJ's having this sophomore slump? Because I agree with a lot of things that you're saying, right? The connection with Nico Collins hasn't been there. You look at them losing Stephon Diggs. That's obviously hurt their receiving core. Tank Dell has not blossomed and emerged into a true receiver in the NFL that can really make some hay in the passing game. Then you look at what the offensive line isn't doing for him. He's the second most sacked quarterback in the league. He's been sacked 4+ times in 7 games. That's the most out of any quarterback in the NFL. And then in the run game, like you said, Joe Mixon has been banged up at times, so he hasn't been a consistent safety valve for this offense being able to get the run game going. So to me, it seems like everybody around him is kind of creating this sophomore slump, not necessarily because, you know, they're affecting his numbers, but when you don't have a lot of options at the skill position, when you don't have people that can block for you, and again, when you're not two-dimensional where you can pass the ball as well as you can run the ball, I mean, really, what is CJ supposed to do at this point?
You guys are all right. You guys make outstanding points, and I totally agree with everything you said. There's another small problem here. I think we all, myself included, got a little bit ahead of our skis with C.J. Stroud, christening him as the next Patrick Mahomes. And Patrick Mahomes' first year starting, he had 50 touchdown passes, right? And I know that's insane. C.J. last year had 23, which is good, and we should have been excited, but it was like, well, he has to top that. It's kind of the normal progression of how you should ascend as a NFL quarterback. And I will say this, they still did already win the division. They still are going to get a home playoff game, something that he did last year and won. They still could do that. And then the way we judge quarterbacks, he could silence any critic. I don't even know if he has any. It's just like people wanted to see him crush it statistically. They could still do some damage in the playoffs if they do get right. I don't know if they're going to win the AFC. I wouldn't go that far. But, like, I think he's on a normal track as far as a young quarterback coming into his own in the NFL.
Danny's just sick of the expectations. I think that's the theme of this show, right? He's just sick of it. It's just crazy to think, though, that this time last year we were talking about C.J. Stroud in that MVP conversation. We have to move on because we have to get to the last game of the day for Ohio State Buckeyes fans, and that's in Columbus. It's the 9th seed versus the 8th seed. Ohio State hosting Tennessee. It's the 9th and 8th seed. These teams are very evenly matched, but what kind of game are you expecting, Leger?
Well, I bet if I'm Ryan Day in Ohio State, I probably wish I was on the road this game, because if this game starts slow, the Boo Birds are going to come out, especially after losing, to Dame's point, the game a couple weeks ago versus Michigan. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Ryan Day and this team actually bounces back at home versus Tennessee. And if I'm Ohio State's defense, I'm telling my corners to play with inside leverage, right? Because I don't know if Ika Maleava,
just call him Nico.
Can make throws outside the numbers. When you look at this Josh Heupel offense, right, it's based off the RPO game and the run game with Dylan Sampson. A lot of those explosive plays that he had a few weeks ago versus Vanderbilt were on in-breaking routes, right? Nico can kill you in the middle of the field. I haven't seen him consistently be able to throw outside the numbers. So if you're Ohio State, Tell your corners to play with inside leverage to make Nico beat you outside of numbers. We know Ohio State plays really good against the run. They're going to try to feature Dylan Sampson, but if they take him away and put it on Nico, make him throw the ball outside the numbers.
I think Jim Knowles, the defense coordinator for Ohio State, absolutely is going to do what we were talking about. Darren Nico to beat you. He still played like a first-year starter. Again, massive expectations. Jordan had to live up to. And he hasn't been the same on the road. But you asked about the environment. I think it is going to be stressful. There is all this conversation about Ryan Day. Damian wants to fire him already.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
That was my next question.
Trust me, the players sense that. Fans will get restless. I think the start to this game is huge. And you know what I would like to see Ryan Day do, combined with Chip Kelly? Cut him loose a little bit. Take some shots to Jeremiah Smith. Where was he against Michigan? Emeka Ibuka, another NFL caliber receivers. You've got Judkins and Henderson in the backfield. Like, utilize your weapons. Don't play conservative. I thought they did that against Michigan and it cost them. Open it up, cut it loose, let your players play.
So you're talking about Jeremiah Smith, you're talking about other receiver, you're talking about how great they are. I'm tired of talking about how good these receivers are because they don't have a quarterback that can get them the ball. We're talking about Ryan Day. We're talking about the pressure on this Ohio State team. Let's put some pressure on Will Howard because what has he done all year to talk this talk that he does, to walk the walk the way that he does? He does not deliver. And when the lights are the brightest, turn on the Michigan game. He was 19 for 33, 172 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. When the lights are the brightest, Will Howard crawls into his shell and he does not deliver. When I see him in the bright lights, you know what I see? Bad decision making, an inept amount of arm talent, and just turnovers. He turns the football over. He does not put this team in a position to win. So to Danny's point, we can talk about these receivers and how great they are until we're blue in the face. But again, they can't show up if they don't have somebody to get them the ball. Will Howard has not proven that all year. What better opportunity than a playoff game after losing to Michigan at home to finally solidify yourself as a guy that can compete and play at a high level when the lights are the brightest.
The winner of this game, you guys, will go on to take on Oregon in the Rose Bowl. You know, Buckeyes fans booked and busy, but it doesn't stop with football because, Haley, we've got college basketball going on, too.
Yeah, as if we didn't have enough on our plate today to worry about. We've also got college basketball, to Jordan's point. Before we talk about the hoops, though, can we talk about Coach Matt McCall's kicks? Because we teased it earlier. We told you we had the feet heat. There we go. Love it. I should have worn my sneakers. I'm in boots. Obviously, though, Matt, a big game on tap here between Kentucky and Ohio State. You'd have to go back 5 years to see this last matchup play out. The Buckeyes were able to get the win. What excites you about the matchup today?
Well, first of all, it's getting tense in here.
Yeah,
okay,
I know, right?
Tense with the Buckeyes, the football, the press.
Ryan Day.
Look, Jake Diebler, year 2. They got off to a 5-1 start. Then they dropped 3 out of 4. They go how Bruce Thornton goes. They're 3-1 when Bruce Thornton goes for over 20 points. But we got to stop talking about Ohio State.
Yeah, we do.
Because we got to talk about the other side of the ball and the Kentucky Wildcats and the job that Mark. He walked through the door. There was nobody on the team. Not even a single walk-on. And he's got these guys playing at a ridiculous level. Haley, when you think about it, 6 guys on this team are averaging double figure. The ball moves, the players move, it hops around, and they have the #1 offense in the entire country. BBN is happy. BBN has not got Mark Pope on the hot seat. We know it can change, but I like Kentucky all over Ohio State in this one.
Ohio State's 0-4 against Power 4 opponents this year, but we got to go to another matchup, one that you said earlier you had your eye on, UNC number 18 UCLA. We know that the Tar Heels are not where we're expecting them to be. What are you expecting out of them in today's match?
Well, I promise I didn't wear these shoes for the Carolina Blue. Okay, I am a Florida Gator alum. I didn't wear the Carolina Blue. But look, North Carolina 6-5. 3 of those 5 losses are to top 10 teams. Yeah. They have played an absolute ridiculous schedule, but they're going to go as this guy goes. It's R.J. Davis's team. He's getting over 18 points per game, but somebody else has to step up. Look, this is conflicting styles. You have one of the best defenses in the country in UCLA. Mick Cronin is known always for his defense and one of the best offenses in the country. But you look at UNC's defensive numbers, 317th in the country in total defense. They got to find a way to get some stops.
Is that good?
Or they're just going to race it up the floor. Carolina break. Let's go. Let it fly. Shoot a ton of threes.
Exactly 5 years ago today, UNC and UCLA met. UNC got the best of them that time. We'll see how it pans out today when UNC and UCLA tip off. That will be followed by Kentucky at Ohio State. A busy day on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
get you some updated HQ headlines. We begin with the Falcons expected to cut Kirk Cousins before his $10 million roster bonus due in March. That's per multiple reports. The news comes just 3 days after Atlanta benched Cousins for rookie Michael Penix Jr. Our own Jonathan Jones reports that while the expectation is that Cousins will get cut, the team has the salary cap and depth to keep him next season. And a new bill has passed unanimously in the U.S. Senate that could lead the Washington Commanders back to D.C. The RFK Stadium bill transfers control of the stadium and the surrounding area from the federal government to the district. With the Commanders' lease in Landover, Maryland, expiring in 2027, the team will have the opportunity to move back to D.C. if a new stadium is constructed. And in women's college hoops, we've got a big one tonight in Hartford. Number 4 UConn is set to host number 7 USC in a heavyweight battle at the XL Center. These two teams met in the Elite Eight last year, with the Huskies taking down the Trojans in Portland. Tip-off tonight for USC UConn is set for 8 Eastern from Connecticut. And in boxing news, Alexander Usyk will take on Tyson Fury later today in a heavyweight title match in Saudi Arabia. These two met for the very first time back in May, with Usyk beating Fury in a split decision. The main event is expected to get started around 5:30 Eastern at Kingdom Arena.
Coming up, we are closing in on kickoff. There's the logo, SMU and Penn State getting ready to square off in the college football playoff. We've got more after this.
Back here on CBS Sports HQ, where it's a massive day in college football as the college football playoff bracket has some movement after Notre Dame defeated Indiana last night in dominant fashion. So they have now booked a New Year's Day date with Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. We'll look for more of this bracket to shape out today when the first round of the college football playoff resumes shortly. Kickoff right around the corner from Happy Valley. There it is when Penn State hosts SMU. You see the guys just, I didn't know what this
no idea what this means.
You know, this Florida girl has no idea what that is. You might know.
I hope they get paid good.
Yeah,
like, that's one thing I always wonder. But see, that's the thing though. Like the cool thing about like the NFL, and I'm sure that this will trickle down to college, is like people who have jobs like that at the end of the year, like the players get together and they donate some money to like
that's awesome.
the ground staff and people like that. And it's for people who do stuff like that. Like people who are so important to making sure the circumstances, the field is good, so the players can go out there and play their best football. Like kudos to them.
You know that firsthand in Buffalo. They got the band shoveling out the snow and everything.
Yes.
All right, you guys, back to this game that gets set to kick off shortly, just 5 minutes from now. James Franklin, 4-14 against top 15 teams in his career at Penn State. This team obviously coming off a loss in the Big Ten championship game to Oregon. The pressure is on for James Franklin today, but just how much pressure, Damian?
There's pressure, but I don't think there's as much pressure as there is on Ohio State and Ryan, right? Because there's a couple things with Penn State. First of all, they looked pretty good against Oregon. Like it looked like Oregon was just going to run them out of the building, but Drew Allard, this team, Nick Singleton, like they were able to get a lot of things going, so they showed a lot of improvement. We've seen the pressure that the fans, specifically in Happy Valley, have put on James Franklin. That pressure is still going to be there, especially because they're playing at home. But when you look at Penn State, their goal was just to get here. And there was a time where we thought there was no chance for them. They've gotten to the playoff now. Whatever they do beyond that is just some extra gravy for them. They're not Ohio State where they have to beat Michigan, they have to win a national championship. They just wanted to get here, and now they did. So now it's just about surviving and advancing, playing the opponent in front of you, and trying to get a win.
Yeah, if Ryan Day loses, he's almost fired. If James Franklin loses, it's massive disappointment. And the fans are frustrated, but it's not the same type of stressful environment you're going to see in Columbus. But I do think as a closing, almost a double-digit favorite, this is a game that you should win if you're Penn State. And then the path is that 6th seed really does set up for them to make a run to the semifinals potentially. So it's all there. That does add some pressure, but again, it adds to the disappointment.
You know, we say the age-old phrase of defense wins championships, and for Penn State, Lige, they've got a great guy on their defensive line, the edge rusher, Abdul Carter. 10 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 37 tackles. Of course, he's a menace as well. Break it down for us how he's going to impact this game.
I mean, Haley, he's freakish athletic, right? He's also position flexibility. People forget he played inside linebacker. They just moved him to edge this year, so he's still young at that position. We're going to go through some film work and just show you how freakish of an athlete he is. You see it right here, the get off. It all starts with the get off. Look how twitchy he is. By the time he gets to the tackle's hip, and we have a saying, Damien, maybe you can finish it for me. If I'm even, I'm what?
I'm leaving.
Right here. You see it right here. Before Donovan Jackson even gets to his second kick step, Abdul Carter's on the edge, and then look at the hand usage, right? The swipe, the rip, and then the speed to finish at the quarterback. He is just freakishly athletic, and again, new to the position, so you would think he's only going to grow more. Same thing right here. Another third down play. What I love right here is most defensive ends will get ran by the quarterback. Look at the lower half and how strong it is. He's able to retrace his steps and get directly downhill. And then on third down, which is the money down, that's where he's his best. That's where he closes out games. Again, nice job. Misses with the swipe, but then has the presence of mind to arm over and get straight down the field to collect that sack on third down. Again, this guy is a game changer, and on the money down, that's when he's his best as well. So he's also not a liability in the run game. You see it all the time in the run game. He uses that athletic ability to get in the backfield and create havoc and get tackles for losses as well. This guy's going to have a big game tonight.
All right, we are minutes away from kickoff, so it's time to get a game pick. We'll start with you, Damian.
I'm going with Penn State today. I think that what I saw in the Oregon game, the way that they fought in that game, some of the things that they figured out with the run game, their defense has played phenomenal all year. I think it's going to be too much for SMU, traveling a long way, playing in some elements that they haven't seen probably most of their lives. So I'm going with Penn State today.
I'm worried about the strength of schedule and all these SEC. I like Penn State too.
Okay.
I think this game is going to be more tricky than people think. SMU plays really well against the run now. They haven't played a physical unit like Penn State with those that two-headed monster in the backfield, but I'm taking Penn State. The elements will be too much for SMU.
I just want to remind everybody that a few years ago when Texas was literally in a deep freeze, like, we're weak, but we're not that weak. My goodness. All right, so that one just minutes away from kickoff. Get on over to check that game out. When we come back, we've still got an hour of stuff to talk about, including the rest of the CFP. We're talking Tennessee, Ohio State after the break. As well as Clemson, Texas, the one game where the weather shouldn't be a factor. The question is, can Quinn Ewers and the Longhorns get in the red zone? We'll break down that matchup. Plus, Patrick Mahomes, C.J. Stroud, two guys with great opportunities here in terms of the playoff picture. We're breaking it down when you come back to CBS Sports HQ.
to CBS Sports HQ. Jordan Giorgio alongside Damian Harris, Danny Cannell, Jay Duzable with you as we get back to our college football playoff coverage. It's a big day in college football. The first round underway right now. It's time to check in with another member of our crew we haven't seen in a hot minute. It's our own Josh Pate, who is live for us out in Columbus. Josh, I don't understand. What's the temperature out there? Where is the big, large parka? There's not even a scarf or anything.
Like, what's going on? Where are you?
Who are you? Look at these hand warmers. Okay, I've got them hidden everywhere. I borrowed this jacket from Cannell. I'm as ready as I could possibly be out here.
All right, well, let's get to the game that you're at. It's a big one. Ohio State hosting Tennessee today. It's the 9th seed versus the 8th seed. Two evenly matched teams. What are you expecting in this one?
A very unpredictable first quarter. Everyone's got their feel on this game. I've got my feel. Everyone at the desk has their feel. It feels like the kind of first quarter where when we go to break and then they come back and, okay, 15 minutes to go in the second quarter, already about 3 things have happened that you wouldn't have seen coming. It's kind of like the way the game started last night, Indiana, Notre Dame. Okay, you got all your predictions on it. Well, did you predict 2 turnovers in the first, like, 10 minutes of action? No, not necessarily. So I think that in large part will dictate how this goes. I just think back to a couple of months ago when you and I were talking and we were in Athens, and it was Tennessee on the road to play Georgia. And we were talking about how important a fast start was for Tennessee. Well, they get up 10-0. Then they get boat raced. And it's hostile environments, all of that. They go in there and silence it, and then it didn't matter. So it'd be nice if Tennessee started fast today, but you don't get this deep in the postseason. You don't get in the postseason period if you don't have a little competitive character, a little resolve about yourself. So it's so popular to say, hey, I think we'll know everything we need to know by halftime. No, you won't. It'll be a 4-quarter game. I think Ohio State understands back against the wall. I just question how different the mentality is or isn't in that building as opposed to the fan base and outside. Because the outside noise doesn't matter as long as you put up the walls high enough inside your building.
Pate, I'm trying to separate fact from fiction and what I see online with this Tennessee takeover that is supposedly taking place at the Shoe. You've been on the ground there. What have you seen? Is there a significant presence of orange? Give me a split what you think it'll be in the stadium.
No, they're up here. Every gas station along the interstate. I drove last night, okay? I went the everyman's route because I came from Nashville, and it was like a little orange convoy on the way up here. A lot of car flags, some snow, so everything was mixed in, the elements included. There are a lot of them here, okay? Then the follow-up question in the regular season would be, yeah, but how many of you actually got tickets? But in this kind of situation where the secondary market is the way it is and the ticket distribution is controlled by the playoff more so than the university itself, oh, and you can steal pre-sale codes and whatnot, which the folks from Tennessee have, I think they're going to be well represented. But at the same time, again, like, what does it matter? It matters a lot. It's a big embarrassment if you get lost and then half the stadium's still full at the end, only it's the road team and their fans celebrating. We've seen that happen at Vanderbilt games, for example, in the SEC. And Ohio State does that to teams on the road like Northwestern. They'll go up to Chicago for a nice weekend, take over the stadium. Ho-hum, we won 38-3, let's go home. That's not supposed to happen in the Shoe. Maybe it won't happen. It's a great mystery. It's a great unknown because we've never seen the ticket dynamic like this.
All right, let's go ahead and dive deeper into this game and who we're going to see on the field. Some of the guys who are going to need to step up today. One of those guys is Tennessee running back Dylan Sampson. How important will he be today up against this Ohio State team?
Well, we can't mention his name without mentioning SEC Player of the Year. So I think that right there talks about how paramount, how important he is to this team, to the conference as a whole, and how special of a player he is. When you look at this Ohio State defense, a lot of people talk about how they like to stop the run. This team is phenomenal at stopping the pass. Tennessee does not have world beaters at receiver either. They're led by Igbinosun. They're led by Caleb Downs. They completely know how to take a passing game away. So what do you do to counter that? You just run the football with a guy who's got over 1,500 yards, 20-plus touchdowns. He's averaging close to 6 yards per carry. I mean, this is your traditional bell cow SEC running back. He runs with great contact balance, so you never see the first guy bring him down. And it's not like he's intentionally trying to run guys over. They just bounce off of him because his balance is so good. He's a decisive runner, like you'll see right here. There's nothing inside, so he bounces, and he just takes what's there. He's not the guy that's going to tiptoe in the backfield and try to pick the perfect hole. If it's clogged up on the inside, he's going to hit the edge and try to make some hay on the outside. If it's open on the inside, he's going to take the A-gap, and he's going to hit it, and he's going to try to hit his head on the goalpost. And another thing that is great about Dylan Sampson, especially when we're talking about a young, inexperienced quarterback like Nico Iamaleava, Dylan Sampson is phenomenal in the pass game. They use him a lot in the screen game, try to get him up in the line of scrimmage, fake like he's pass blocking, and they slip him the ball, and then he's got nothing but linemen and green grass in front of him. And so he's just as equally important in the pass game, especially for Nico, who, like I said, doesn't have world beaters on the outside. He's been inconsistent at times. He hasn't played at a stage like this before. Well, when you have a guy that you can hand the ball to and throw the ball to, and he's going to block for you, like Dylan Sampson is going to be a do-it-all guy for this team today. And this is a type of game, a type of performance where I would expect his teammates, I would expect his coaches to grab him by the face mask and say, we need a big day out of you today. We go as you go, and he's going to say, listen, big boys up front, take care of the down linemen, I'll make the rest happen.
Yeah, he's the focal point of the offense, but Ohio State knows that coming into this game, and I think that's why we were talking about this earlier, DK. From Ohio State, I'm crowding the box, and we just saw the graphic. He's still one of the best running backs in the nation when 8 people are in the box. He just runs physical. You talked about the contact balance. We see it up and down the film throughout the whole year. The thing is, Ohio State is going to try to minimize him, right? And then what will Nico do, right? We talked about it earlier. If I'm Ohio State, I'm telling my corners to play with inside leverage because of the RPO game is so big for Tennessee, and Nico is so efficient throwing the ball in the middle of the field. Make him beat you throwing outside the numbers. Can they do that? Me and DK also had a conversation about the other quarterback, Will Howard. I think there's something to be said, and Damon, you talked about this in the Michigan game, how they were so conservative, and they didn't put the game in his hands. Multiple 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 10s, and they ran the football. Like, you have Will Howard, who went toe-to-toe with Oregon. Yes, he made a mistake at the end of the game that cost him the game, but he was so efficient, not only with his legs, but throwing the ball as well. So if you're Chip Kelly, put the game in Will Howard's hands. You talked about all the weapons they have on the outside. You can't be conservative and win in the CFP.
All right, we're looking forward to kickoff from Columbus, but I do want to get to another game that's going on today, and that's out in Texas, where the Longhorns host Clemson. It's Quinn Ewers versus Cade Klubnik. I know how you feel about Cade here, Danny, and I'm coming to you first. Josh, you stay put. We're sorry for making you face the cold out there. Listen, I want your take here. But Danny, I want your take on Quinn Ewers here. Is he really 100%?
I don't think so. There's a different version of Quinn Ewers that I saw earlier this season. When I was watching the Michigan game, I actually sent a tweet during the game, and I said, this looks like the future #1 NFL draft pick because he played like it. But since then, he got that oblique injury, which he had just a couple games later when he was handed it off. Then he had the ankle injury. Here's a couple plays. Now, watch some of the mobility and the arm talent that we see when he is fresh. This is a throw a little bit off balance to his right, pinpoint accuracy, perfect placement on the football. So you see him able to move around the pocket, and you see him able to rip the ball down the field with not much effort. And he's able to stretch the field vertically. His average depth of target has dropped significantly over the latter portion of the season. So now you got another situation where he's in the pocket. Now this is just flat out playmaking ability, but again, with the ankle where he's essentially wearing a ski boot, I haven't seen him make many plays like this lately either. The type of plays that you're going to need if they are going to live up to the favorite billing. And then this one's just a flat out playmaking ability. Again, mobility, getting outside the pocket, and then the arm talent to make a throw on the run, find an open receiver down the field. That's the guy that I want to see because we haven't seen that one recently. We've seen this version. Now watch his feet. Doesn't step into it, kind of throws off his back foot a little bit, throws it behind his receiver to the inside. On an outside breaking route, you cannot miss inside or it's going to get picked almost every single time. He had not one but two of that exact same type interception. But maybe, just maybe, the 2 weeks since the SEC championship, give him a little bit of time to get healthy. If we see that Michigan version, they could win the national championship. If we don't, they could get beat today. All
right, Josh, it's your time to shine. What Danny wants to see versus what we will see, two different things. What are you expecting to see from Quinn Ewers tonight?
More of the same. I don't think there's any reason to believe he would play at a different caliber. To go to Cannell's point there, we don't know that to be true definitively, but let's just walk it through. Let's say it is true. Let's say he's not 100%. Steve Sarkisian has acted exactly how you would if you were his head coach and play caller and you knew your guy wasn't at 100%, but you didn't want to reveal it publicly. Because he has seen the same stuff we've seen. The difference is if he's armed with that information, it makes sense that he's bristled publicly at the notion that he's too loyal to a guy. Or if Quinn Ewers comes back next year, it may be for another team because he knows the guy at 100% was his starter for a reason. But having said that, if he is what he's been, that's the recipe for a very compacted, close game today, and it shouldn't be that. Texas outclasses Clemson fairly significantly, but then again, they outclassed Arkansas. But it was a compacted game because they couldn't make plays, and that's why I expect Arch Manning to be part of the game plan today, not start. But people have kind of looked side-eyed at that as well. I looked side-eyed at the fact that he didn't get more participation in the SEC championship game. So I think he'll play today. I think they'll win, and I think it's a big pressure moment for everyone involved in that organization.
All right, Damian just threw his hand up. I don't know if he agrees with you on that point.
No, I did because that was going to be my question to Pate. Should they inject Arch Manning? Because listen, I want to set the table here, Pate. I want to go back in time. All year long, we have talked about about. Is this Quinn Ewers' team? Yes. Is Steve Sarkisian making the right decision by keeping Quinn Ewers as a starting quarterback? Yes. This is his team, right? Well, what I see is a fan base that supports Arch Manning. I see a team. I see players that support Arch Manning. And I'm going to even give you some perspective, right? I remember the opening touchdown for Arch Manning against Texas A&M. He comes to the sideline. He is getting crowned. People are ripping his jersey open like he is Superman. They rallied around him with an attitude that I haven't seen them play with all year. Then I'll do you one even better. In the SEC Championship, people might not have even seen this. There was a time where Quinn Ewers re-aggravated that injured ankle. He hobbles off to the sideline. There weren't any trainers. There weren't any teammates that came and patted him on the behind like, yo, are you good? Are you okay? So to me, this doesn't look like or seem like or feel like Quinn Ewers' team. So is it time to just say screw it and inject Arch Manning into Texas' veins?
Hey, real quick, that must have been when you guys tossed Jalen Hurts to the side, right? I mean, that was kind of like that when you guys embraced Tua?
Well, no, because I'm going to sit on here and speak facts. And this is a production-based business.
Right,
and if you have to produce at a position and you're not doing that, you have to find a guy that will step in and do that. And even from a statistical or the numbers that Arch has put up, I'm not necessarily talking about that. I'm talking about the swagger. I'm talking about the attitude. Because Texas is easily, in my eyes, one of the more talented teams in the country. They've got the talent at the running back position. They've got the talent at the offensive line. They've got the receivers. They've got the defensive line. They've got the DB. They're just not playing with an attitude.
You got to be loyal. That's great. But loyalty to one guy is a dereliction of duty as your head coach. You got to be loyal to your locker room and put guys out there that give your locker room, your team, your organization the best chance to win. It is my opinion that mixing Arch Manning in that equation gives Texas a better chance to win. I'm not the head coach at Texas. We'll see if he agrees with me today. But watching that SEC championship game, I thought it was pretty undeniable.
All right, gentlemen, we will leave it there. Josh, go find a fireplace. We appreciate you joining us here live from Columbus. Catch more from Josh every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. You can watch Josh Pate's college football show on YouTube. He has everything you need to know to be a part of the greatest game. More from us when we return with more CBS Sports HQ. Look at that guy. It's not all about college football. We also have NFL games going on, and it begins at 1 p.m. when Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs take on the Texans.
on CBS Sports HQ, where we are inching closer to seeing quarterback Patrick Mahomes start for the Kansas City Chiefs. Of course, we've been monitoring that ankle injury. He says he's good to go. We will see how that game pans out. A big one in the AFC, though, with Houston getting the matchup there. As we take a look at Sportsline's best player props for today, Russell Wilson up at the top, Mr. Unlimited, expected to go over his total there. We've also got a handful of Chiefs players that we're paying attention to. You know, when it's KC, you're always good for some money. Let's see if we can make some money in the other game coming on later today, though, between the Ravens and the Steelers. And to do so, we've got our guy Eric Casillas here. EK, you got a 2-for-1, kind of a 2-for-3 with the Ravens. Let's start with Lamar Jackson. What are you looking at?
I love Lamar Jackson passing attempts under. It was 30.5 earlier in the day. It's now at 29.5. I'm not going to give you a line you can't play. We'll still go under 29.5. This is pretty simple. There's a difference between median and mean, which is really important in prop bets. And I'm not going to make this math class, but here's the idea. If you have 10 attempts, 150 attempts, and 10 attempts, if we average those, you're going to be like 70 people. Oh, well, that's not the number you want to use.
Yeah.
You want to use the average in terms of what's higher and lower you throw out. So that would be 10, right? And that's how you do props. That's how you win at props.
And that's math.
So this is what it is. When you look at wins, his number, the number for Lamar Jackson is 22 attempts in wins. That's his median. So at 29.5, we have a real margin. Now, if the only time he's going to go over is if they're behind, chasing, throwing, shootout type of games, and that's not what this is going to be. So you throw those games out, you stick to what the likely game script is, and we're going under.
Let's talk about Derrick Henry, because that's where that twofer comes from. You're looking at him from a couple of different angles.
Yeah, same thing. First of all, the carries I like over. The median in wins, 23 carries. In all, if you take out the blowouts, it's 22 carries. His number is 17.5, 18.5. So we're going to go over, assuming that they're not going to get blown out and have to abandon Derrick Henry, because I don't think that's going to happen today at home against Pittsburgh. I also like him to score. Hasn't scored in a couple of games. They understand what's going to happen today. You need the big fella. You need him to fall into the end zone. So I'll go up. It's pretty... It's juiced and not in our favorites. Minus $1.70, sure. Minus $1.80. But Derrick Henry to score. Derrick Henry carries over. Lamar Jackson passing attempts under.
There it is. I hope you guys took notes. EK bringing us our best bets in the NFL. Of course, with our best bets also comes the fantasy angle. And to get into the fantasy angle, we bring in our guy, Jamie Eisenberg, host of the FFT. Jamie, we're doing starts and sits. It starts with Patrick Mahomes, who we know the Chiefs are leaning towards getting the start from center. But do you start him in the fantasy angle here?
I would not, Haley. You know, you're looking at a situation where he's a little bit banged up, as we know. I know he's practicing in full, which is a great sign, but you're still talking about a gimpy quarterback against a very good pass rush with bad offensive tackles. So Texans are second in terms of the NFL in most sacks on opposing quarterbacks. They just turned Tua Tagovailoa over 3 times last week. So Mahomes, 3 straight games under 20 fantasy points. He is not a #1 quarterback for me.
All right, so Jamie is keeping Patrick Mahomes out. Patrick Mahomes, Jamie, does get a weapon back in Hollywood Brown. He'll make his Chiefs debut here. The question is, though, will he be an impact player for fantasy managers today?
I hope so. You know, it's going to be fun to see. Clearly, there's been an inconsistent receiving core. You've seen DeAndre Hopkins and Xavier Worthy each step up each of the last 2 games. I love that they're continuing to get Worthy work. But Marquise Brown, this is going to be like his training camp at this point. You know, they're trying to get him ready for the NFL playoffs, and fantasy managers in the semifinals, and if they advance next week to the championship, very difficult to trust Marquise Brown, especially next game on Wednesday. So we'll see how this game goes. You know, more of a discovery game than anything else. You're not going to play him, though, in your fantasy semifinals unless you're absolutely desperate.
Yeah, I was going to say, keep him at bay there. All right, Jamie, you got a DFS lineup for us. What is it?
Yeah, I'm going to go with a heavy Raven stack here. I think Lamar Jackson, I know he struggles against the Steelers, but he's clearly the best quarterback of the day. It's going to probably be 2 low-scoring games, so you're hoping for a little production from some interesting places. So you see the 2 running backs, and I'm going with the Justice Hill and Jalen Warren, both going to be involved catching the ball. And I think for Hill, Zay Flowers, and Isaiah Likely, Rashad Bateman's banged up. You got no Nelson Aguilar, so Lamar Jackson will have to look some different places. We've seen these guys step up at times. Zay Flowers due for a big game, did score against the Steelers last time these 2 teams met. We know no George Pickens. That means some other guys have to step up as well. Pat Fryermuth has scored a touchdown in 3 straight games, and Calvin Austin has been basically about 10 PPR points each of his last 2 games. So these are 2 guys that I think we'll see Russell Wilson lean on. And then Nico Collins, Joe Mixon, clearly 2 of the best players on the slate. Nico Collins should have an absolute field day against the Chiefs. They give up a lot of big plays down the field. and hopefully Joe Mixon can get going in the passing game because it's going to be real hard to run on the Chiefs in this matchup.
No Chiefs in that DFS lineup, Jamie, but we'll keep our eye on it as the matchups get underway. He's Jamie Eisenberg, and you can find more of Jamie on the Fantasy Football Today. Our fantasy crew does an excellent job of getting you prepared from every angle. So make sure you scan that QR code or listen in wherever you get your podcasts. Coming up, we got to hit another break. We go back to college football, where the transfer portal has ruffled some feathers across the college football fan base. Is it ruining college football? Our players weigh in after this.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
Highlights and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
Sure. What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ. You need your sports news all the time.
We've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you.
Big news coming out of the NFL. A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
With highlights.
What a finish at the final round of play.
And in-depth analysis.
Can they three-peat? Tony Romo joins the conversation.
What can you say about this game?
When you need your sports in a snap.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
Find it on CBS Sports HQ. Streaming free anywhere you are.
Welcome back to CBS Sports HQ, presented by FanDuel. Want to get you an update between SMU and Penn State. It is scoreless. Penn State is driving. Drew Aller so far, 3 of 4 for 20 yards, averaging 5 per pass there. So we'll keep our eye on that one as the CFP is underway. But you know what's also underway? College basketball. Here's a look at the top 25. I've got Matt McCall standing to my left as we're going to break down some of these games. One of the bigger games that we're watching, and you even said that State should be ranked in this one. We've got Mississippi State taking on number 21 Memphis on CBS. One thing you're watching in this matchup, Matt?
I'm excited to see this one because Memphis has been in a lot of close basketball games.
Yeah.
I mean, they've won 2 games in overtime. I think Mississippi State's one of the more disrespected teams in the entire country. You look at what they've done on the year. They've got 10 wins, just 1 loss. Their 1 loss was out in Arizona, coming off a back-to-back. They played 2 games in 2 days. They have one of the best point guards in the entire country in Josh Hubbard. How about these numbers right here? 39 assists to just 3 turnovers.
Oh, Matt
And he's
McCall.
still averaging 18 points per game. He's got the best assist-to-turnover ratio in the entire country. I don't understand why the Bulldogs are not ranked. They're going to be ranked. They find a way to win this one.
Memphis won the last matchup back in the NIT championship in 2021. It was a 77-64 win. It gets underway in just about a few seconds here over on CBS. He's Matt McCall, and we'll be keeping our eye on basketball today because it's a big one on CBS. Mississippi State, McCall says they should be ranked, taking on number 21 Memphis at 12:30. From basketball to football, let's pass things over to Jordan.
Haley, I hate to bring this up on such an amazing day, but we do have some very sad news to deliver to all the transfers in the portal. Danny Cannell is just sick and tired of all your love letters, so he wrote his own, saying, quote, "Ever since you walked onto our campus 6 months ago, we knew it was the start of something special. But look at you now, driving a Lambo, living in a penthouse downtown, flying around the country in your private jet. I hope you can just feel and see the sarcasm just seeping out of this graphic. Let's get down to the bottom of it. Danny, what is going on here? Explain yourself."
Yes, Jordan. All that being said, I've decided to go ahead and move on from that transfer portal guy. So I hear this all the time from frustrated fans, and it's sure there's an old guard of fan that hates that players are getting paid and they don't like to see that. But I do think the movement that we see across college football every single year with free agency taking place, I think it is destroying the sport that we know and love, and I want to protect that. And I'm concerned that fans are going to get disenfranchised because they watched a player like you come into Alabama and start to cheer for you. They watch your recruiting process and watch your development. Same thing with you at UCF. Same thing with me at Florida State. And they kind of become attracted to you and they feel like you're a part of a family. We have lost any sense of family, history, tradition, and team, most importantly, in the sport. And they better fix it soon or else it's going to cost a lot of fans.
No, I agree with you. I think that when you look at it, just the fact that they're allowed to have free agency in the middle of the season, there's no other league, there's no other sports organization that does that. So now you've got teams who, like, look at Penn State, for example. They lost Prbula, their backup quarterback. They're playing right now. If Drew Aller goes down, what's their next step? What's their next option? Like, you are hurting your team. And then it goes to this, right? Even for the kids who stay, when you've got kids who say, hey, I want to enter the transfer portal, but hey, I'm going to stay, they'll finish out the season. Well, what about the other guys who are looking at this guy that wants to leave? It's no different than the NFL, than when a guy comes out and says, hey, I want to be traded, I'm not happy where I am, I want to go somewhere else. Well, everybody starts to distance themselves from that guy. Same thing is going to happen in the college football playoffs whenever you've got teams who have guys that are entering the portal, whether they leave or even if they come back. Like, if they're still in that locker room, guys are going to distance themselves. Then that's going to break down the camaraderie. It's going to break down the chemistry, everything that you built to get to the most important playoff, the most important tournament of your life. And the fact that it's regulated and it's allowed, it makes no sense to me whatsoever.
What are we teaching our, I say this with quotations, our student athletes when it comes to the transfer portal, right? Because you talk about adversity. A lot of these players don't have to deal with it. Like me and Damien, if we wanted to transfer, we had to sit out of here.
Exactly.
Like, so like when you made, you know, your visits in college and you decided to sign on the dotted line, like it was a commitment for you. It was literally a 3 or 4 year commitment, or you were going to sit out a year, right? And then I think it's also hurt player development wise, right? Because now, like, instead of being in one program and learning how to do it the right way, you've literally bounced around. Some guys bounce around from the spring to the fall. Like, so literally 6 months at a time, you're bouncing around. So again, I think the rule should be everybody's allotted one free transfer because, you know, there are circumstances where family or something else could happen where you have to transfer. Your coach leaves. I think you deserve a right to maybe leave if you don't fit the certain scheme that a new coach is coming in. But that's it. After that, you should have to sit out a year, right? Because what are we teaching our student athletes? There's no accountabilities. There's no accountability. There's no competitiveness, right? Guys don't, like me and Damon, we had to fight our way up the depth chart to become guys. And to DK's point, fans, like, they were there for our recruiting process. Like, that's why I don't think the fandom has been as great as it's been in past years, because from year to year, guys are changing teams.
I think there's an easy solution. I think it's make them employees. Like, they're getting
that's why I say student athletes.
Right. And I do think that's eventually what's coming. And we're in this limbo period because there's things being fought in court. And the university system doesn't want to have that happen because then that takes a piece of their pie, and they don't want to give up their money that they're making off the kids. Yet the NIL system is a total sham. It's not. It's not NIL the way it's supposed to be with marketing deals and you're making money off endorsements. It's sheer collectives, boosters getting desperate, saying we want to win, so here we'll pay you this. It's all a sham. And then every season there's so much churn on the roster. You bring a great point up about, you know, the fact that players aren't developed. Look at the quarterback play. Even in the playoff, it's very inconsistent because we see guys playing at 4 universities in 4 years. It is not going to be healthy for the sport or the quality of play in the sport that we know and love.
I just think that when you look at the portal, the way the NIL is set up, the way that these kids have the freedom that they have, right? Because everybody loves to say, well, college is just turning into the NFL. Well, no, it's not. Because the NFL has owners of teams. They have a CBA. They're employees. They have locked-in contracts. They have a lot of things that are different from the NFL. And I just think collectively, since we don't give them that same type of regulation, we don't give that same type of governing body, we are putting these kids at a disadvantage from a business perspective. We're putting them at a disadvantage as far as loyalty and commitment to a team. Because what happens when this generation of kids who is used to playing at 4 programs in 4 years, well, what happens when they go to the NFL and they're a high draft pick on a team who goes 2-14, and they're all of a sudden like, hey, I want to get traded after my rookie year. I want to get traded after my sophomore season. Like, if you have a sophomore slump, well, you can't do that. But kids have been prepared to live in that world of microwave success. You get what you want right now. It's all about getting what the kids want right now. But the NFL is not like that. So we are doing these kids a huge disservice as an NCAA, as an organization, the way that we're setting them up. We're setting them up for failure essentially at the next level.
Unfortunately, that is the reality. There's no end in sight, so I guess we just sit back and enjoy the games and hope for the best. Jordan, we know you're not transferring out. You're our girl.
I'm locked and loaded. I am definitely here to stay. More college football talk when we return, you guys. It's Dabo Sweeney versus Steve Sarkisian. Who advances in the college football playoff? Game picks on the way. Stay with us.
the support of the NFL, a new playbook is being written, one where we all play for the same team. Across 27 cities, the National Gay Flag Football League provides inclusive play for over 4,000 LGBTQ+ players and allies. Under these lights, walk-ons are welcome.
Your sports news all the time.
We've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you.
Big news coming out of the NFL. A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
With highlights.
What a finish at the final round of play.
And in-depth analysis.
Can they three-peat? Tony Romo joins the conversation.
What can you say about this game?
When you need your sports in a snap,
we're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
Find it on CBS Sports HQ. Streaming free anywhere you are.
Got a score update to bring you between SMU and Penn State. The Nittany Lions get on the board first in their opening college football playoff game. It was a Dominic DeLuca pick six. He took it to the house for 26 yards. There is the numbers as the first half continues to tick down. We will keep you updated as that game rolls on. In the meantime, let's get you to some stats that matter. And we're talking picks today. Double-digit favorites in college football playoff games all time. Here's the list. You see Alabama up there at the top has been quite the underdog occasionally, and they've won. In fact, they've blown those numbers out of the way. Why are we talking about that? Well, because Clemson comes into their matchup against Texas as a double-digit underdog. As you can see, the line has moved quite a bit even since we started this show. It is now at plus 10.5. Although this is Georgia and Texas, where Clemson has been a double-digit favorite. I am understanding this now as I am seeing it. Regardless, they are a double-digit favorite against Texas and Clemson. That was their previous times. They were double-digit favorites there. It's been a long show. It's been a long day. Let's get to the experts that matter. We're going to pick that game as well. EK, I'm coming to you first because we've been talking leading up to this. The line's been moving. There's been some changes here. So give us your best pick for Texas-Clemson.
I like Clemson, their team total under. And if you want to pair that with Texas just to win the game, to make it even a little bit more favorable, or you want to go a little alt line and move Clemson up a little bit and put it with Texas, I'm okay with that. But basically, here's the point. I don't see Clemson scoring a lot of points here today. I told you yesterday Indiana would not score a lot of points. They had 3 with like a minute and a half to go. Clemson's in for a rough ride on offense. Here's the thing. If you look at these 12 teams in the playoffs and you say, what are the best units, individual units? It's probably Oregon speed number 1 and the Texas run defense number 2. Clemson ain't going anywhere. We're trying to run the football today. It's just not going to happen. So, Kate Klubnik, start limbering up. You're going to be running for your life, and you're going to be in second long and third and long all day. And that's going to be UGLY. You ain't got no alibi. They are not getting. See, thank you. If you can get an alt line under 21.5, I love. There's no chance they're getting to 22 or 23. I don't even think they're getting to 20. I think they're going to be 17 or under. Clemson team total under.
All right, TK.
Cade Klubnik has 33 touchdowns and only 5 interceptions, and he has found his legs recently. All of a sudden, he's been a little bit more mobile than he had. Like he will. He's running for his life. I don't think it's a shootout, so that's the good news. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring affair, because I don't know if Texas is walking up and down the field against Clemson's defense, which did a pretty good job holding in check that South Carolina team that everybody said was the hottest team in college football until you had Lenora Sellers go off for a couple good runs. Other than that, they held them in check the majority of the game. I like the under in the total for the game because I think it will be more of a defensive affair. And with that being said, so if it's a lower scoring game, I like Texas especially. It is actually a FanDuel right now up at 13.5, which is a massive number, which makes me kind of nervous because there's all this money coming in. But I'll go ahead and back Clemson. Playing with house money, kind of loose. They weren't even supposed to be here. Texas a little bit more tight. We talk about strength of schedules. Texas hasn't exactly played a gauntlet, and the 2 times they did to Georgia, they lost both games.
Yeah, look, I agree with what both of you said, which is very weird for me to be in that situation. Me and EK have been talking about this play all week long. I love that Clemson team total under. I think I like the whole game under as well. A lot of that stemming from that Clemson team total going under. I talked about it earlier, right? SEC defenses are not Clemson's friend. They combined for 17 points between 2 different opponents in the SEC that they played. Texas will be a very, very big problem for them as well. Now, if Texas does have this big, pretty lead, I think they'll sit bet on it, right? So that's why I kind of like this full game under. Quinn Ewers has had some problems. If they put Arch Manning in the red zone, maybe that's a different story. Maybe that's when you start live betting some overs. But as of now, for me, it's going to be an under.
Damian Harris would absolutely love to see that. All right, let's go ahead and get to the final game in the first round of the college football playoff. That is tonight in Columbus. Ohio State hosts Tennessee. Last I checked, Ohio State at home favored by 7.5 here. The total is set at 46.5. What's your best bet here, EK?
I'm going to be like Danny Cannell on his honeymoon in the Hawaiian shirt when they put out like the thing and he went limbo lower and got underneath that thing.
Now I've got the visual.
That's right. I'm going limbo lower. I am going under 46.5.
Okay.
There was a great article on CBSSports.com on what each of the 12 teams struggled, where they struggled. And I thought it was incredibly well written and effective. So when you look at that, for example, you say, where's Ohio State struggle? Their offensive line is really beat up. It's going to be hard to run the ball effectively and really have big plays against that Tennessee defense. Where does that lead us? Kind of under. And when it comes to Tennessee, what do they not do well? Throw the ball, especially necessarily the big chunk plays throwing the ball. What does that do? Ticks the clock. Under. Both teams sort of want to play this one in that sort of vein and fashion. I don't see them getting to 47 unless we get to an overtime. Because remember, in college, you have these overtime rules. Yeah. Basically, if you get to overtime, you're really in trouble. Just decide it in 60 minutes, and I feel really good about the under.
I agree with you on the under, but my favorite play is actually the Buckeyes here. I'm going to lay them with Ohio State. Maybe it's a Michigan problem, which I tend to think it is. Ryan Day, I thought he mishandled the whole situation, the way he put so much pressure on his team and made it feel like the whole season was at stake, even though they could still accomplish all their goals, which was a national champion. This roster is still the same roster, pretty much intact, except for the offensive line, which was predicted to win the national champion and was a heavy favorite across the board. I want to see the team that traveled to Oregon and went toe-to-toe with Oregon, and the Will Howard that threw for over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. I hope that Ryan Day opens it up. I think he does, and Chip Kelly does it well, and trust some of their talent that they've got on the perimeter. And don't try to cram it up the middle like they did against Michigan, because I don't think it'll work. But I think they learned their lesson. I think it's a different team. I think they open it up, and I think their defense stops Nico and company because he has not been the same quarterback on the road.
See, this is more like it. I'm on the other side. I think this is Tennessee. Do I think they necessarily have to win outright? No, but getting a 7.5 is a very, very important spot to be instead of, say, 6.5, right? I think they will outgain them on the ground. The Sportsline model has them outrushing them by 50 yards. You talk about these running backs. We saw it last night in that cold Notre Dame Indiana game. It is hard to tackle really good running backs in the cold, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen with this Tennessee team. Ohio State's offensive line, we've talked about for weeks. They're beat up. That affects your running backs massively. So again, a game on the ground, I see Tennessee winning that.
It's going to be interesting to see that one. I still can't get over the ticket conversation, the debacle that we've had with Ohio State and Tennessee buying up all the tickets. So we'll have to see.
If they're orange checkers, then I'm very concerned. Like if they get orchestrated that much,
that's
then
like
I'm
a Penn
worried.
State thing. I feel like they would pull it off. I don't see other teams pulling it off.
All right, we got to hit another break here, but we are getting so much closer to kickoff in some of these games. To get you ready for the college side, make sure you're locked into the Cover 3 podcast. I know DK and the fellas have been so busy this weekend. You're ready for all of the action. You can scan that QR code on your screen or listen wherever you get your podcasts. And speaking of closing in on kickoff, Patrick Mahomes has a date in Houston with the Houston Texans. We get one final look at the matchup as it gets ready to kick off at the top of the hour. CBS Sports HQ, we are rounding out our massive pregame show at Arrowhead. Where else would we go, right? Patrick Mahomes has won 87 games through his first 8 seasons. That's the most by a starting quarterback all time. We know he is banged up, dealing with a high ankle sprain. KC currently first in the AFC. They're 13-1. A win would clinch the #1 seed and a playoff bye, but they got to get past those Texans, and that's where we pick it up here. Jordan Giorgio, Lige Douzable, Danny Cannell, Eric Casillas, I'm Haley Sutton. Let's go right there, guys. When we talk about Patrick Mahomes, and Danny, I'll come to you here first. We've seen him deal with an ankle injury before, but take us inside the mindset. What is he dealing with as he's playing through that high ankle sprain?
The experience that he's had with it, I think, helps him tremendously. He's got a team around him. I mean, if you watch The Quarterback on Netflix and watched him behind the scenes, what he's doing to get ready to play, that goes into it. Also, the fact that I trust him and his medical team of deciding, okay, you're healthy enough to go, which means you're not going to get that much of a drop-off production. The thing that's so freakishly talented about Patrick Mahomes, too, he's not a guy who needs to have 100% of his body because of his arm strength. He's got a rubber arm that's able to throw off all kind of platforms, and he's got enough mobility, even without it, to figure out a way if there is pressure. So, Haley, that's, I think, all the reasons. If you're a Chiefs fan, you're not worried about it because you trust him that he's healthy enough to play, and more importantly, you're not going to get that much of a drop-off in play on a team that hasn't been putting up huge offensive numbers anyway. They're just figuring out ways to win, and I think today will probably be very similar.
The other quarterback that we'll see when we near kickoff at 1 o'clock Eastern is C.J. Stroud. So looking at this quarterback matchup, both of these quarterbacks really haven't met their expectations statistically speaking. Both top 3, though, in the AFC. Who needs it more today, Lige?
I think it's the Kansas City Chiefs just because of the ankle with Patrick Mahomes. And DK, you're right. I trust Patrick Mahomes. I don't trust his offensive line. And when you look at these edge rushers from the Houston Texans and Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, they can get after the quarterback. So you worry about that. Just going back to last week when they played the Cleveland Browns, he was hit 11 times in the first 3 quarters. Like, you're not going to win a lot of football games doing that. Now, again, they find ugly ways to win games, right, because they have the pedigree. But you worry going down the stretch with that ankle, how much pain and pressure can he take with those guys coming off the edge? So to me right now, the Kansas City Chiefs need this game more than the actual Texans, because they got to win 2 out of the last 3 to secure that #1 seed.
How much does Hollywood Brown impact the Chiefs today?
I don't know if he makes a huge impact. I mean, he hasn't been there the whole season. Now, I think they will get him involved more in the intermediate game, while Xavier Worthy will try to take the top off the defense. But again, Haley, my biggest concern is when you're trying to get the ball to Hollywood Brown, can you stay in protection and hold up enough to throw the ball down the field?
Eric, are you on the same page here in terms of AFC seeding that the Chiefs need it more today?
Yeah, because I think Houston's sort of locked in, right? Yeah. They're not going to win they're not going to lose the division.
Correct.
And they're not really moving up. I think this is basically a get in, get out for Houston. I don't think this game matters much for them at all. I mean, they are where they are. They're going to be that 4 seed. I mean, okay, so if you move up to 3, am I really going crazy? So you're playing the first weekend, you're playing at home, and you're going to win the division. So absolutely.
As we look at the playoff picture there, of course, the Chiefs have the 1 seed right now. We know the situation with the Bills. They are close behind. They own the head-to-head. So it's going to be interesting from that standpoint. But if we bring things back to our game today, fellas, we always do game picks, so we need a game pick. EK, I'll come to you first. Who wins this game today?
Oh, Kansas City. We've seen this movie before, right?
Kansas City.
I mean, I can watch every sports movie. No, whether it's Rudy gets in at the end of the game, right? Rocky loses Rocky 1, he wins Rocky 2. Hoosiers, they win at the end of it. You see it. No matter how many times you watch it, it's the same thing. No matter how many times I watch the Chiefs, they win the game at the end, and it's close, and you go, how did it happen this week? That's what's going to happen. I can just see them kicking a field goal and running off and winning by 3. So that's just how it is. Why would I think it's going to be anything else?
I'm with you on that. I think the Chiefs win comfortably. I would lay the 3.5. Yeah, I think they'll figure it out. There's also that desperation vibe. We were just talking about Texans, like where they are. We talked about the regression of C.J. Stroud. I think this is a game where you get the elevated version. And I do think Hollywood Brown being back will be a huge asset for them.
I'm going to go opposite. I'm taking the Texans plus 3.5 with a chance of spraying something on the money line. I mean, for every reason I talked about, right, the offensive tackle issues for the Kansas City Chiefs. Mahomes on a short week with that ankle. Yes, he's done it before. We saw it in 2022 with him having that injury in the divisional round versus Jacksonville, and then he was able to go through the playoffs and win that Super Bowl versus the Eagles. But I think this is a spot for the Houston Texans where you get to kind of match up and see where you're at in the landscape of the NFL, right? C.J. Stroud, to your point, Jordan, hasn't played up to his standards standards when it comes to the statistics, right? The offensive line has struggled for the Houston Texans as well. I think this is a chance for them on a national stage to prove that they're one of the best teams in the National Football League. I like the Houston Texans plus 3.5.
And if Houston, you win that first playoff game, you're going back to Arrowhead or GEHA.
Whatever.
So this is a mental thing too.
You probably are going back here at some point.
Who are you rolling with? You know, I'm going with the Chiefs. I would love to see it. We are moments from kickoff over at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. I hope you guys are just getting comfortable. This is just the warm-up. These last 2 hours were just the warm-up. You know, when you go to workout class after the first 10 minutes, more HQ on the other side.
We work out too.
He's distracted.